Greetings YouTube, Captain Machine here, back for another video. And I've decided that I'm motivated enough to actually make one because YouTube has magically started behaving itself. It used to be that when I tried to upload a video, the bar would fill up immediately, full, and it wouldn't tell me how far my progression was going. If I tried queuing multiple videos, it would just do the first one and then stop. And today, of all days, it's decided to do it properly. So, I have been motivated to do more, and one of the knock-ons of that is I've started going through my inbox to look for any questions I've got in the past. Now, I have asked before that people send me questions and messages and things like that, and when it comes to messages and questions I get sent, I do read all of them. I don't reply to all of them though. Either I don't feel that the question deserves an answer if it is a question, or a comment deserves an answer, or I don't have an answer for it. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And they're the ones that don't get answered. I also get a lot of friends requests from random people who are my subscribers. I don't mean any disrespect to you guys out there, but I do not accept random friend requests. I've never done that, not for a long time. If I know you, then I'll accept you. If I value what you're doing in the creative terms in YouTube, and I think I might want to collaborate with you in the future, then I'll accept your friend request. But beyond that, no. I won't do it at all. I don't feel that. I mean, granted, there's the whole subscriber count thing where people obsess about how many subscribers I've got, and I do to a certain extent because I like to think that I'm not talking to myself. But I don't feel that extends to friends as well, because friends for me is something completely different, and it's and I do prune it as well from time to time. So if I don't want to be a friend anymore, I will just remove you from there. It's not an ego thing. It's just the fact is I want to separate subscribers from friends, because I do believe they are two separate things. I don't profess to be friends with any of the people I subscribe to on YouTube, and I don't see how it could work the other way. So sorry guys, those of you who sent friends requests to me in the past which I haven't accepted, that's why. Right, on to the letter I've got, and this is from bobeverliving, who has asked me two questions. The first is basically, are there any solo adventures for him and his girlfriend? And also, he also wants to know the importance of miniatures in all editions of Dungeons & Dragons and what role they play in 4th edition. Well, first of all, I'm assuming that when you're playing solo adventures or one-on-one adventures with your girlfriend, you're playing Dungeons & Dragons. I wouldn't get the impression from what I've been reading so far that is the case. The answer is yes, there are one-on-one or solo adventures out there. They are incredibly rare and hard to get a hold of. Not because they have small print, because they do. It's primarily due to the fact that they make up I would say about less than 1% of the total amount of products released for Dungeons & Dragons at all. I remember that TSR did a set of solo adventures, one for each core class, so as a fighter, a wizard, a cleric, and a rogue one. I believe Paizo have done a few for Pathfinder, and might be some floating around for 4th edition and 3rd edition with the Open Gaming license, but they're going to be hard to find. I've done a quick Google search, and the first things that pop up are not actual modules. They're something else completely different, or just topics discussing the concept of one-on-one gaming. I would say that out of all of them, 4th edition is actually going to be the easiest one to do it with, because of the way the experience point system works. Basically, you get a budget of experience points you can spend on encounters or adventures based upon the number of people in your party and what level they're at. So you can take the level of your party, which in this case is just your girlfriend, and times it by the number of people in the party, which is 1, and just it'll give you a flat figure which you can use to put minions or monsters onto the table, and they should prove to be a challenge but not impossible to overcome. I would highly recommend allowing player characters to have minions or henchmen or anything like that with them if they're going to have solo adventures, just because primarily when you play Dungeons & Dragons you're playing a combat heavy game. Even in a roleplay esque environment, when the crap hits the fan, you have to throw down, you are dependent on those dice to keep your character alive. So it's always handy to have that backup of someone else being there to give you a helping hand. Also, you have them die, not your girlfriend's player character. As for the importance of miniatures in all editions of D&D, in my honest opinion, it's a exponential curve like that. So you got your first edition where it was not essential at all, although some people did use them because first edition Dungeons & Dragons is derived from Chainmail, which is a war game. The second edition, where people were getting the hang of the whole thing and a lot more miniatures were coming out, and although in my opinion the movement rules were more convoluted and complex, they were put down, set in stone, so you could, with a bit of forethought, do it that way, and a lot of people did. And then it shot up to 3rd edition, where 3rd edition put the whole game on a grid. Not only did it put it on a grid, but it said, this is how far you can move, this is the rules for moving that far. If you want to move away from someone that you're in combat with, this is what attack opportunity is. Attack opportunity is the biggest thing that have caused miniatures to be required. If you want to cast a spell, this is the area effect, this is how many squares it occupies. I mean, obviously, everything's being listed out in feet for you, and you have to work that out by every 5 feet is a square. But it's all done there for you. You can have it as a free-flowing narrative style, but it's highly recommended you have miniatures. It makes the game run a lot easier. Also allows you to have more tactical aspects when it comes to your combat, as opposed to, I run up to it, I hit it, and then 5 orcs attack me. Obviously that does happen anyway, but say for example, you tend to find that with non-miniature based combat, say for example you've got 5 members of the party and you come across 10 orcs, what you'll immediately tend to find is most GM will go, right, 2 orcs on you, 2 orcs on you, 2 orcs on you, 2 orcs on you, 2 orcs on you. Which in fairness sounds fair, up until the point where you realise one of those party members is a wizard, and he would be doing his damnedest to make sure that there was a party of fighting maniacs between him and the orcs. And that comes out very well in miniature combat, it comes out very poorly in narrative combat. So that's the one disadvantage to the narrative whole system. And 4th edition, which is now up here, so you got, there we go, that's 4th edition up there. 4th edition has changed the measurements once again to squares. So every square is still 5 foot, but the rules don't say this has a range of 30 feet, this has a range of 6 squares. So you have to do the maths to work out the distances. So it makes it a lot easier to move around on a grid. It makes it harder to figure it out distance-wise for the narrative stylists out there. On top of that, there's a large number of powers that 4th edition characters have, which affect your position, your party member's position, the effects you have on people nearby you, auras, things like that. And you tend to find that it highly requires miniatures. You don't need them, and your GM, according to your message, says you don't need them, and your GM is right. If your GM says you don't need them, you don't need them, but unless your GM is good, it's going to be very confusing and very difficult to go from a combat system which is highly structured around having models on the board to a narrative style. Very difficult to go from those two wildly different ways of running combat. When I say models, obviously I'm talking about things like this. That's a great swordsman on a base needs painting. But you don't need to outlay on lead or plastic. When it comes to models, there is an industry out there, and this is mainly built from a costume industry as well, of people doing this for themselves, of paper miniatures, which is a little piece of paper folded over with a picture of an elf or a dwarf or a wizard drawn on it. And that represents your character. And you can even make a project of it by having each player draw a different picture for their character. And you maybe even bonus experience how nice it looks, or how coherent it looks, and how much effort they've put into it. For a grid, you don't need to buy a vinyl back mat, you don't need to buy a tactile system. You can just go to your local stationery shop, buy a massive piece of A2 paper or a pad of A2 paper, and play with that. You don't And when you don't need a grid on that either, you can just get a measuring tape out or a ruler to measure your distances. If you don't want to waste paper every session, you don't have to use a pen. You can use pencils and rub out what you've used. So there are very non-expensive ways of playing the game using a miniature-based system, but you don't have to. In my opinion, however, it helps a lot. So thank you for the letter, Rob Everliving. I'm going to go through the email box, see if I can find any more which I can answer. And please guys, if you've got any more questions, let me know. Thanks for your time. Bye bye.